Well, hello there, boys and girls. Lundrick here, and bring you an audio commentary. And what I've decided to do is a rebooking series of past WrestleManias in the build-up to this year's WrestleMania. Well, actually only up till the Elimination Chamber, because right after the Elimination Chamber pay-per-views, I'll start doing WrestleMania retrospectives. But over the next 3 or 4 weeks, I'm gonna rebook some of the past WrestleManias. Some of the WrestleManias that gets criticised, people saying the card sucked and all that sort of thing. And but good place to start for me is WrestleMania IX. This is in 1993. This is an often criticised WrestleMania, and for good reason. It wasn't very good at all. This is the one where Bret Hart won the title from Yokozuna. No, he defended it at the end, and then Hogan snatched it in and won the title. That was awful, wasn't it? So yeah, I'll be doing this one. WrestleMania 11 is probably on the agenda. In fact, if there's any Pacific WrestleManias you want to see, post a comment below. So before I get started, let's go over what the real card was. Main event for the World Wrestling Federation Championship, Bret Hart defending against Yokozuna. And of course, Hulk Hogan swanned in and stole the title at the end. Brilliant. Intercontinental Championship, Shawn Michaels defending against Tatanka. Tag Team titles, Money Inc. defending against the Mega Maniacs, Hulk Hogan and Brutus the Barber Beefcake. Undertaker versus Giant Gonzalez, yes. What else have we got? We've got Lex Luger versus Mr. Perfect. Doink the Clown versus Crush. The Steiner Brothers versus the Head Shrinkers. I think there's one more. Razor Ramon versus Bob Backlund. And before I get started, there's one thing I want to point out when I do rebooking. I only use what's available to me. Because I see a lot of rebooking videos where people have wrestlers in that aren't in with the company or injured at the time, and I think that's just cheating, to be honest. So any of the wrestlers who left the WWF, such as Ric Flair, Ultimate Warrior, British Bulldog, Legion of Doom, not going to be on this. I'm not going to cheat. I'm only going to use the roster of wrestlers who were working for the company and not injured at the time. So yeah, let's go. We're going to kick off the show with a decent squash match. We're going to have Bam Bam Bigelow versus Owen Hart. Bam Bam had come back in the back end of '92 after 4 or 5 years away from the company, and got quite a decent push throughout in 1993. Before, I should also point out he was supposed to face Kamala on this card, but that match got scrapped due to time constraints. So yeah. And then Owen Hart was pretty much doing nothing. I think High Energy had broke up a bit after the Rumble. I think Koko B. Ware had left the company. So Owen was pretty much in limbo, not doing really anything at all. He was just on Superstars and that sort of stuff. So then he did make a pretty good opponent for Bam Bam. Give them about 3 or 4 minutes. Let Owen Hart do some nice moves. But mainly let this match be about Bam Bam Bigelow beating up Owen Hart and all that sort of stuff. So I'm sure Owen Hart would have done a good job of making Bam Bam look good. Owen could bump around for Bam Bam. Bam Bam got his big power moves. And get a strong win over Owen Hart in about 3 or 4 minutes. So the first match of WrestleMania 9, Bam Bam Bigelow defeating Owen Hart. Match number 2, just Doink the Clown versus Crush. Interestingly enough, the only match in the card I would keep exactly the same. Because when I was going through it, I just didn't have a decent spot for either guy, so just keep this match how it was. I know the match wasn't good at all, and the whole build-up was Doink was clowning around. He beat up Crush with a false arm and that sort of thing, and then to have the finish exactly the same with the 2 Doinks and all that, with Doink going over. So yeah, so Doink over Crush in match number 2. Now, match number 3 for the World Wrestling Federation Tag Team titles. Money Incorporated versus the Steiner Brothers. Rick and Scott had came in the WWF finally at the start of 1993 after years in WCW. Then, to be honest, I think WWE should have just pushed them towards the Tag Team titles right off the bat. I didn't see why they waited a few months. They should have just went with them straight away. I mean, Money Inc. the Steiners had a decent little feud in 1993, didn't they? But they didn't have a pay-per-view match in this time. I mean, the King of the Ring, there was a 8-man tag with Money Inc. and the Head Shrinkers versus the Steiners and the Smoking Guns. Then they had the little feud over the summer, but then by the time SummerSlam came around, that feud was dead over with, and Steiners went off with the Heavenly Bodies, and Money Inc. more or less broke up. So I don't know why they just didn't have the Steiners go right after Money Inc. They have the Steiners come in and say that they've only joined the World Wrestling Federation for one reason only, and that's to become the WWF Tag Team Champions, without outright saying WCW. Just say they've been all over the world, Japan, America, and won all the other tag team titles in the world that matters. And they're going for the biggest prize of them all, the WWF Tag Team Championships. So have them challenge Money Inc. and that sort of thing. They can have stuff like where Money Inc. attacks them before the show and that, interrupts the matches, tries to duck the Steiners. The Steiners can eventually become #1 contenders by, let's say, beating the Head Shrinkers on Monday Night Raw or something, perhaps. So the match happens. And also, for the purposes of this, Jimmy Hart would have never turned face and joined the Mega Maniacs. So Jimmy Hart would have still been the manager of Money Inc. I thought that was a pretty pointless face turn for Jimmy Hart, managing Hulk Hogan after all those years. I thought that was a bit nyeh. But so yeah, this match could go on next. I'm sure we'd give them 10 to 12 minutes. I'm sure they could have an entertaining match that the fans would like. And I'd go all the way with the Steiners and have them beat Money Inc. to become the tag team champions right here. Like I say, I think they should have just put the Steiners at the top of the tag division right from the bat. And then Rick and Scott, they won the tag titles in about June or July, so I don't see what difference a few months would have took. So yeah, so just have the Steiners go over and remain tag team champions. That'd be pretty cool. Next up for the Intercontinental title, Shawn Michaels defending against Mr. Perfect. I know they had this feud in the match at SummerSlam 93, and ironically enough, the feud started this night after Shawn Michaels attacked Mr. Perfect after Perfect's match with Luger. So why they should have just went for this, done this match here. I mean, the way they could have built it up after Shawn Michaels retained the Intercontinental title of Royal Rumble 93, start calling himself the greatest Intercontinental champion of all time, getting a bit cocky, and of course Mr. Perfect on the roster would take offence to that, saying he's the greatest Intercontinental champion of all time, and he's going to have to show Shawn Michaels this. So then they would get into fights, pull apart, brawls, interfere in each other's matches, that sort of thing. And then the match would be made for WrestleMania IX. They could hype it up as the greatest Intercontinental title match ever. They could call Mr. Perfect the greatest Intercontinental champion of all time, and if Shawn Michaels can only call himself the best Intercontinental champion of all time if he can beat Mr. Perfect. Now I know the SummerSlam 93 match wasn't actually up to much, but hopefully at WrestleMania, and I think Perfect was pretty hurt by the time they had that match, so, and Shawn Michaels was getting a bit out of shape, if you remember. So I think Shawn Michaels was in better shape by WrestleMania 9, and I think Mr. Perfect was in better physical condition as well, so give the guys about 15 minutes, I'm sure they could have hopefully they could have a great Intercontinental title match, a very memorable one. Yeah, just let the guys wrestle. I'm sure the match would be great. And then I'd have Shawn Michaels go over by cheating, maybe with a handful of tights, his feet on the rope, something like that, just to get more heat on Shawn Michaels. Then at that point you've got the option of either just moving Shawn onto something else, or ending the feud entirely. Now match number 5, Yokozuna versus Tatanka. I mean, this might be a strange one, but when I was booking the main matches, I realised that neither Yokozuna or Tatanka figured in any of these plans. So the best thing to do is just to put them together. They could, if you remember, Tatanka had the undefeated streak going at the time, and then Yokozuna was brought in as this big, massive monster in 1992, going through the whole roster. Now, obviously, this would necessitate Yokozuna not winning the Royal Rumble that year, which we'll get to that when we get to that, because obviously somebody else had to win the Royal Rumble. So Yokozuna doesn't win the Royal Rumble. And then the way we could set this up is maybe Yokozuna would start bullying jobbers around after his matches, and not Bonsai dropping them once, but Bonsai dropping them twice. So then perhaps he could do it to someone higher up, like a Jim Duggan. Finally, so Tatanka can't stand it anymore. He saves Duggan, has a go at Yokozuna for picking on people, saying, "Come and try and bully me around then." So then, in one of Tatanka's matches, Yokozuna could attack him after the bell, give him a couple of bonsai drops. Then we got the option of having Tatanka off television for 2 or 3 weeks, maybe even far as a month, recovering from these injuries. Then he can come back and challenge Yokozuna to a match at WrestleMania IX. And then, so match is on. And then they would have the match, which probably wouldn't be all that great, to be honest, but I put this match in here out of necessity. Give him about 8 minutes, he could possibly produce something decent. And then I'd have Yokozuna actually go over to Tatanka clean to continue Yokozuna's push. See, I think Yokozuna probably got the title a little too quickly. I think if you'd give him a slower push, he might have got more over. And I don't know what you're thinking. Do you really want to end Tatanka's undefeated streak here? And I would say yes, because did it really go anywhere? Did it make Tatanka a main eventer out of this? It's big And then when he actually lost the streak to Ludwig Borger, did that do anything for Borger? Not really, so why not just end it at WrestleMania? That's my thoughts anyway. There we go. Match number 6. The Undertaker versus Razor Ramon. Yeah, this is surprisingly enough, even though Undertaker and Scott Hall were in the same company for a good 4 years, they never had a pay-per-view match together. Now they have had a match together, because I remember it off one of my old VHS tapes from years ago, like years and years ago, back from '93. And I'm sure the match is out there on YouTube somewhere. I'm not sure when it was or where it was, but it was taped for the old Coliseum videos. It's not a bad match actually, to be honest. Now, remember Razor Ramon wrestled Bob Backlund on this card? I thought, that was such a waste of Razor, wasn't it? I thought Razor came in, got a great push off the bat, looked really good. And then at WrestleMania, he got stuck wrestling Bob Backlund in a 3-minute match. And also, this obviously is part of this. Giant Gonzalez would not be on this card at all completely. I thought Giant Gonzalez sucked. That feud of the Undertaker sucked. The Undertaker Gonzalez match was absolutely dreadful. Now, the way I would book this is there'll be a bit of a restructure of the Royal Rumble actually, because this feud would start in the Royal Rumble. Undertaker would eliminate Razor Ramon from the Royal Rumble match, and then Razor Ramon would run back in the ring a little while later, distract or attack the Undertaker, then someone else could eliminate the Undertaker. Then you could do the thing where Undertaker and Razor were brawling down the aisle, back to the dressing room and that. And over the next few weeks, Razor can start talking shit about the Undertaker. Perhaps even interfere in one of his matches. Perhaps even rough Paul Bearer up a little bit. So then the Undertaker goes after Razor Ramon. Obviously all the silly little mind game dark side stuff the Undertaker was doing around this time, they could do that. Have him like putting caskets at Razor Ramon and that sort of thing. Interrupting his matches and whatnot. Just cutting promos on each other. So then we have this match at WrestleMania IX, Razor Ramon. Have them go about 12 minutes. I think it might be a pretty decent match. Be a cool match. It'd be damn sight better than most of the shit the Undertaker was doing around this time, when he was wrestling like the Kamala, Giant Gonzalez, the Berserker, Papa Shango, all that sort of shite. So this would actually be a decent match in my opinion. And obviously, it's been a streak. The Undertaker obviously goes over. I think that one goes without saying. Just a clean away victory for the Undertaker. Tombstone pile driver. 1, 2, 3. No bullshit. Now, next up is the second biggest match of the night. And this is a match, when people talk about WrestleMania IX, not many people actually say. Which is quite surprising, because to me it seems fairly obvious. And that is Hulk Hogan going up against Lex Luger. Yes. So obviously Hulk Hogan came back for WrestleMania IX to do the tag thing with Beefcake, which was what it was. And then we all know how the night ended with... I don't want to get into a rant about that. I'll probably, when I get into WrestleMania IX retrospective, believe me, I've got a lot to say on that subject. So obviously Hogan doesn't poke his big nose in the main event. Hogan doesn't leave WrestleMania IX as the World Wrestling Federation champion. Now obviously Luger came in at Royal Rumble 93, doing the narcissist thing, which, if you watch that, how homoerotic does that look when Bobby Heenan's unveiling the narcissist when he's like, oh, it sounds like he wants to wank Lex Luger off and he's going, look at the legs, look at the legs, oh, look at those abs, look at those abs, those arms, those biceps, Luger, you look amazing. Honestly, just watch the footage, how gay does Bobby Heenan look when he does that? It looks like he wants to fucking suck Luger off or something. So then, yeah, and then Hulk Hogan announces that he's coming back to the WWF, which he did a short while later. Then Luger can come out, cut a promo on Hogan, saying, without specifically mentioning WCW, said, I've been looking for you for years, Hulk Hogan. For years, I was over there, you were over here. Now for the first time we're in the same company. Lex Luger wants Hulk Hogan. And obviously Hulk Hogan, being the good, real American brother that he is, has to accept Luger's challenge. Like, yeah, and they just... It gets panicked. I think this was something of a dream match. Perhaps dream match would be stretching it a little bit, but I think enough people would have been interested to see Hulk Hogan versus Lex Luger back in like 90, 91-ish. I know it was 93 and both were a bit older, but I still think this would have been an interesting enough match. If you remember at the time, Lex Luger had the steel plate in his forearm from a motorbike accident. He was doing the thing where he was knocking people out with it, so you could even have him knock out Hogan with the forearm in the build-up to the show. I would actually like to see Luger brought back his torture rack for the feud as well. You could even have Hulk Hogan back in the torture rack. So obviously Hogan gets beat up. Hulk Hogan vows revenge on the evil Luger. What you gonna do, brother, when the largest pythons in the world run wild on you? You know, the little promo Hogan did all the time. So yeah, but we got Hogan and Luger, and this could be, I think this could be a decent match. Give them about 15 minutes to work with. Obviously the Hulkster beats Lex Luger, that goes without saying, because Hulkster probably wouldn't do the job to Luger. So yeah, Hogan, pretty much straight up Hogan beats Lex Luger cleanly. Yeah. Now, we have like a buffer match, just a little buffer match before the main event, just to cool people down from and get them ready for the main event. Just a little 5-minute match, and that's Bob Backlund versus Rick Martel. No real story behind this, just because often at these sort of WrestleManias, 6, 7, 8, 9, you'd get the odd match that was just thrown on together for no particular reason as a filler match, and that's pretty much the category this would fall in. Give them 5 minutes, just let them have a decent wrestling match. Bob Backlund can beat Martel. Now the main event, I'm sure you've got through this video and you probably know what I'm going to say, but I'm going to tell you anyway. For the World Wrestling Federation Championship, Bret the Hitman Hart defending against Macho Man Randy Savage in what would be something of a dream match at the time. A big babyface match. Obviously, this would necessitate Randy Savage winning the Royal Rumble that year. So basically, Randy Savage wins the Royal Rumble, gets a shot against Bret Hart, saying Randy Savage is still the best, and if Bret Hart wants to prove himself, he's going to have to beat the Macho Man. Oh yeah! And Bret Hart, they pretty much have a match of respect between two baby faces. The veteran Savage, because Randy Savage was considered a legend even far back as 93, and Bret Hart, who was just getting his feet wet as WWF champion. I mean, he didn't have a lot of credibility at first, but feuding with Savage would have helped him, I think, to be honest. So yeah, have it about respect. No, not a blood feud, just two guys who respect each other, but both men want to be the best. Should just show them, maybe even have training videos, especially have it hype it as Savage's, possibly Savage's last shot to becoming champion. Because of the transition to the new generation era at this point, make out like the Bret Hart's the new leader, but Randy Savage isn't ready to let go of his spot. Because Randy Savage is about 40 at this time, so hype it up as possibly Randy's last shot of glory. Obviously saying he's going to beat Bret Hart, and then Bret Hart saying, "Sorry, Randy Savage, your time's over. I'm the new leader of the new generation. This is my time. I'm going to be here. I'm going to be the WWF champion." So yeah, just have contract signings, the whole 9 yards, trainer videos. Just have them cut promos on each other. Perhaps have them Perhaps have them show a little bit of tension in the last couple of weeks. Perhaps Savage show some heelish tendencies, which would be pretty good. So then we get the match, the main event. Give him 20 plus minutes. Have this. Honestly, if this match had happened, this could be a great match. I mean, Randy Savage, yes, he was a little bit past his prime, but he still had a hell of a lot of offer. And Bret Hart was one of the best wrestlers of all time in this time period. So you'd think that'd be a classic main event, wouldn't you? There's actually a match out there on YouTube I seen not too long ago. In 1994, a house show between these two men for the WWF title. That was a great match. If you haven't seen that, look it up. So yeah, start off with a nice clean wrestling match. Possibly have Randy doing some heel moves like eye rakes and whatnot. Then, obviously, for the finish, you could have Savage go for the big elbow. Bret Hart moves out the way. The Hitman puts the sharpshooter on. Randy Savage gives up, so Bret Hart retains the WWF Championship. Then the post-match, Randy Savage shakes Bret Hart's hand. He raises his hand, endorses Bret Hart. So then the show goes off the air as Bret Hart holding the title up high in the ropes, with Randy Savage endorsing him. I think beating Randy Savage at WrestleMania would be a big boost to Bret Hart's credibility. Then from there you could possibly do Bret and Luger. Then after that, after Hogan beat Luger, then you could possibly transition Hogan towards challenging Bret for the title at SummerSlam 93. So yeah, that's the WrestleMania 9 card for you. What did you think of this? I'm not saying this card would have been awesome, but I'm pretty certain it would have been better than what we got. So yeah, post some comments below. Did you like it? Did you not like it? What would you do differently? That sort of thing. The next one I'll do is WrestleMania 11. But of course, if there's any particular WrestleManias you request, pop them in the comment section below, please. So I'm out for now, and peace.